Hello there. Thank you for your patience. We were just in executive session. We're just trying to get everything settled, and then we will begin the meeting. Hi, Andrew. Nice to see you. All right, are we ready? Okay. Anime, do you want to turn off your? Yeah. There are a couple of things I will be so glad to never hear again, and one of them is you're on mute. All right, let me know when Tim's in. Tim, are you in?
Yeah, no, sorry, I was clicking on Marl's link. I couldn't figure out why. Oh, and I'm in.
Okay, great. Let's make sure that everybody's, everybody's muted. You do. Okay. Welcome. Good evening. We have just returned from executive session in which we discussed matters covered under Exception 3 of the Massachusetts Open Meeting Law to discuss issues related to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body. The discussions pertain to the Medfield Teachers Association, Units A and B, and the AFL-CIO Custodians, Cafeteria Workers, and Secretaries Units. I'm now going to call this meeting to order. It's December 4th, 2020. It is the regular meeting of the Medfield School Committee, and we're going to begin with a roll call. Leo Brown.
Here.
Tim Knight.
Here.
Megan Glenn.
Here.
Anna Mae O'Shea Brooke.
Here.
And Jessica Riley, who is echoing. Just to let you know, this meeting is being recorded. So now we move to the public input portion of the meeting. I'm going to read our statement, which is, citizens at this time may address the committee on items of school business not on the agenda. The committee will take such items under advisement without action or discussion at this time at the meeting at which the item is presented. Comments will be taken via video. We'll now allow a period of time for people to virtually raise their hand by clicking on the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. When you are brought over, please announce your name and address. And those who raise their hand will be heard for up to 3 minutes each. In order to further the efficient process of the district and committee's business meeting, we will hear public comment under this agenda item for no more than 15 minutes in total, but we do not have to have it for that long either. So is anybody raising your hand? We'll give you a little bit more time. Okay, so Catherine, is Catherine gone? Or did you bring Catherine over? Okay. You just let me know when Catherine's ready.
Hi.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi, how are you? I just had a quick question and I'm not sure if you will be able to answer it.
Okay, actually, just to let you know, we take comments at this
Okay.
point, but we don't do questions. So if you want to do your comment and it's not related to the agenda, any item on this agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
So my comment was I was hoping that and I'll word it this way. I was hoping that after the individual topics, if we could have an openness of having the public input after like the school progress report and those, I was hoping that it would be possible for parents to be able to speak and the individual topics after them if there was an opportunity. And I was just hoping that that would be able to happen tonight. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Goodness, I muted and de-videoed myself. So after certain topics, and one of them being the reopening, we will take comment, but we will not be answering questions at that point. We're simply taking comment, and if any of the school committee members would like to ask a clarifying question, that is perfectly okay during that period of time. But
That's
we will
great.
not be doing dialogue. Okay?
Thank you very much, Jess. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Is there another person who would like to raise their hand? I had seen somebody else. Oh, hi, Jack. Go right ahead. You're on mute, I think.
Sorry, how you doing?
Wonderful.
Thanks for the time. My name is Jack Baker. I've been a resident in Medfield about 7 years. I have a daughter, Sophie, who's in 7th grade, Will, who's in 5th grade, and I teach in Needham. And had a chance to meet with Dr. Marsden, which my wife, Julie, and I appreciate that. Got to meet with a couple of school committee members, but just wanted to kind of voice my frustration.
Jack?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. And the second that somebody says they want to voice their frustration, and I feel terrible about interrupting you. Is this about the learning model and the learning progress?
I have some data I wanted to provide if I could.
Okay. Can we do that after the discussion for the learning model and the learning process? Because this is for issues that are not currently on the agenda, and there will be time to do that.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it. Okay. Anyone else wants to discuss something that is not on the agenda for this evening? Anyone? All right. Steve, okay, can you, Steve, who are you?
Stephen Caskey.
Steve Caskey, okay. Go right ahead, Steve.
All right. I would like to know where our values and priorities are as a town and a school community. Our school committee held a mascot forum in July. We spent over 90 minutes conversing with residents and spent time listening to concerns of non-residents and took their opinions. A 3-minute video was also submitted. Here we are in the first week of December, and we were facing a public health crisis in regards to getting our kids back to school. And the school committee is actively going out of the way to suppress public input. One of the first meetings, the question and the answers were shut down and left many residents frustrated because their questions were not addressed. The next meeting, the question and answer feature was removed. And finally, at our last meeting, after the budget discussion, you completely bypassed our public input. This was specifically stated on the agenda. This has been a pattern and not a misstep. Instead of having open discussions, you ask that people send their concerns via email. Many residents have claimed that they have not been replied to or received responses such as, I will pass this along to the other members while not addressing any of these comments, which has happened to me as well. And Superintendent Marsden also sent back an email which didn't even address my question. It was murky. Why are we not having any school reentry forums? We should be doing this. While other towns are working on getting their kids back to school, we are punting and running out the clock. I want our school to be proactive like Stoughton.
Okay.
And want to send their kids back. I would like
very much appreciate that. I appreciate your views on wanting to have a back and forth dialogue, but now you've kind of moved into around the learning model. And that is a public comment that is on the agenda and that we will be taking public comment afterward. So I would appreciate it if you could keep your comments to items not on the agenda right now.
Okay.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay, so that was my public input question, and my concern is it's been, as somebody who really appreciates town government and having the opportunity for people to speak out and have their concerns addressed. Many parents have been deplatformed and not given any avenue to have a conversation with school committee members or even superintendent to have their concerns addressed and spoken to back and forth. And this seems like it's been pretty prevalent during this situation. And again, we had a meeting where a 90-minute forum was set up for mascots where numerous people were allowed to chime in and have conversations. I think this is a pretty sad state going on in this community right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Chris McHugh Potts, was she the next?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Hi, Chris.
Hi. I was going back to the October 8th school committee meeting where Michael LaFrancesca noted the 2020 budget closeout and that the end of the year report was submitted to DESE. I did not see it in the meeting packet. I mean, the committee did not discuss it, but I'd like to make a request to have that end of year report put on the school committee page of the website. That's a budgetary responsibility is one of the major responsibilities for school committee, and that report really should be posted on the website, especially since it was signed by the chair. I was curious if the school committee actually got a copy of that end of the year report for reference sake, because I think it's important to have it posted. And then the secondary thing is that I know Michael LaFrancesca also mentioned that an audit would happen in the next few months, and under school committee policy DIE, the committee will consider recommendations made by the auditor for maintaining an efficient system for recording and safeguarding the school department's assets. So I would just ask that be put on as a possible agenda item to discuss the audit of the school budget.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Is there anybody else who has comments on things that are not currently on the agenda for the evening? Okay, great. Thank you so much for all of your input. I do appreciate it. And we will get to my notes here. We will now actually move on to the fiscal year 21 budget update and the school learning model progress. We've pulled these two items out of what we had been calling old business, simply so that we could allow people to hear them before it got to the 9:30 or 10 o'clock portion of the evening, so that more people could understand what's going on with our progress. And we'll keep these two items pulled out for the next however long, probably for the rest of the school year, certainly around for the amount of time that we'll be reporting on these and need to kind of address these as special issues. So what I'm going to do tonight is we're going to take public comment on both of those issues together after the learning model, the school learning model discussion. So the school committee will hear Mr. LaFrancesca's report, then we'll hear Dr. Marsden's report, we'll have our discussion, and then we'll take public input on both of those, okay? So that being said, Michael, I'm gonna hand it over to you.
Okay, I just need to share my screen.
All right, so. Yeah, move.
Okay. So last time we met, we agreed that we were going to update you on where we stand for the budget month to month. So I want to first actually start um, with the spreadsheet that we showed you before that shows the Grant 102 and the CARES Act. Let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger for you. All right. So as you can see, as of November 30th, we expended on the 102 grant $353,769.95. We have $211,655 left, which will be spent by the end of December 30th, and that's going to be pretty much salaries and any PPE that we need to move forward. And then under the CARES Act, we've submitted $452,206 in COVID expenses. We're projecting right now for PPE an additional $35,649. And then we discussed, as we discussed last time, any code-related staffing that is currently coming out of operations. Both the warrant committee, the selectmen, and the town administrator agree that we will be moving those costs into the CARES Act. So what we're doing is we are tracking those costs, which you see. I'm going to move that over just a little bit. As you can see right here, from September 1st through the end of November, which is our payroll, we spent $166,360.93 on staffing that's been coming out of our operation. $131,000 is teaching staff, and $35,000 is our paraprofessionals. So that's the total of $166,360. We're going to track that for the month of December. We have 2 more payrolls in December, and then we're going to do one journal entry at the end of the month to move the payroll from our operational cost into the CARES Act. But I wanted to, just so you guys know, as of right now, what we spent in staffing that we have to move over into the CARES Act. Any questions on that?
That's what we talked about in the last meeting. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
So there's no,
Yes.
yeah, great. Thank
I
you.
mean, we're still projecting about a $1.1 million overage due to COVID-19 expenses. And once we move the payroll for September through December, those costs on the left-hand side will go down. But right now, they're part of our operational budget. And then the other spreadsheet that we said we were going to provide you is the budget versus actual. So the top part is our personnel side, which is, we broke it down into the 4 categories that Desi breaks it down. Ms. Potts said earlier at the end of year report. So this is how the end of year report is broken down. And this is how we are reporting our cost. Instructional services, right now, we have actually spent $7.8 million, 29% of that budget. So we're about 2% over. That cost is going to continue to escalate. The percentage is going to continue to escalate because that's where the teaching staff comes out of. Student support services, right now we spent on personnel $323,000. We are spent about 24% of our budget, a little bit under target as of right now. Operation cost is about $648,000, call it $649,000, 39% of our budget, slightly under where we should be projected. And then administration, $296,000 as of today, and we are on target for administration cost. So our total personnel, we've spent about $9 million from July through November, which is 30% of that cost, which we're slightly higher than where we're usually projected, which is about 27%. And again, those are due to the COVID-related expenses. And then on the non-personnel side, again, we're breaking down in the same categories. And as you can see, for instructional services, we spent $321,000. about 29% of our total budget. Tuitions, those are out of district tuitions, about $500,000, which is 41% of our budget, again, on target. Student support services, 261,000, about 13% of our budget. Operations, this is where our utility costs come from, and our transportation for our regular transportation, we're about $500,000, we're 29% of our budget, and currently we're slightly under, but those costs, as we spoke about earlier, those costs are going to go up, and we're beginning to see that in the month of November. The temperature has been mild, which has been great, but as it gets colder, we're going to see those costs escalate, because we are going to be heating the buildings, but we're also using the changing our HVAC system. We're pushing in more air into the system, which is costing us slightly more to do that. Administration, $44,000 is an administration cost, about 33% of our budget. And as you recall, that's where our legal fees come out of, is that line item right there. So as you can see, we're already spent about closely to $45,000 in that line item. And then equipment, we're about 13% of our budget, which is technically on target, because most of our equipment is our copiers and any equipment that is needed for our custodial staff. And we've only spent about $8,000 in that. So total non-personnel, about 1.7 million, 26% of our budget, again, under budget. We're purposely keeping a close eye on that, because we know that our personnel side is going to be going over budget. So as of today, we spent $10.7 million, 29% of the budget that was approved at town meeting for the school department. I also provided you the backup, so you can see this is the 102 grant. Those are all the invoices that we paid to date. The red ones are the ones that we have reviewed in the past. The blue ones are the new invoices that were added from the last time we spoke. Same thing for the CARES Act. If we go down, all the ones in white are all the invoices that we added since the last time we reported. And as you can see, you can track that on the right-hand side here. And then we did the same thing for the non-personnel side. We listed all the line items where we are. We even added to this our encumbrance. So there's stuff that have been encumbered that have not yet been spent, but have been encumbered. And then on personnel, again, we did the same thing. We have every single line item for you to review, and you see this budget versus actual on those lines, which is all summarized under the budget versus actuals main page. If there's any questions, more than happy to answer any questions. So we usually have special ed transportation costs, but if you recall, we pre-purchased that because we were allowed this year to pre-purchase our transportation, knowing that there was going to be some fluctuation with our budget. So usually we're at approximately 42%, but because we prepaid our special ed tuition, transportation, that number is lower.
Does anyone else at this time have questions for Michael on the committee? Okay, so Dr. Marston, would you like to start the update on the school learning model progress? And then just remember to our attendees who are tonight that after this, we will take public comment. Okay, so Dr. Marston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just a couple of things that we're working on and as far as our school learning progress. The first thing is I know that Mary Brule is going to be contacting parents either tomorrow or Monday. We're working on a model that brings back all of our students that have an IEP in 4 days a week. So we figured out a way that we're able to do this. There's definitely some issues around it in terms of transportation, all the limitations that we have bringing everyone back anyway. The 6 feet and the transportation are two things that we that certainly don't help us in that situation, but we feel like we'll be able to bring back all of our students in January that are on IEPs 4 days a week. And our highest need students who have been in since the beginning, we'll do additional instruction in the Learning Center, and we'll have all the other students in as part of cohort C with additional teachers working with them. So we feel really good about that. I think that the issue around transportation is that in order for this to work, much like our cohort C people, that transportation will take place on the days that your cohort is going, but on the extra days that you're in, we're unable to provide transportation at this time. So it'd be a situation where if you're in cohort A, you get transportation on Monday, Tuesday, and you have to provide your own transportation on Thursday, Friday. Now, this is something that parents can opt out of if they don't want their student to come in 4 days a week. We feel it's important for our students to get back in, and that this is a great way for this to happen in this model. So we've been working on it now for a few weeks. Mary's been meeting with the staff on it. She met today. We're meeting again tomorrow afternoon to have more conversations around it. But looking for a January 4th, bringing those students back. So that was really good.
Specifically
K, thank you, K to 8.
So
That's just-
specifically K to
It's
8.
K to 8. So we would bring K to 8 back in that model. Again, a few things to work out. Mary's going to be sending out a survey to parents and kind of get a sense of where they're at, whether or not they want to do this, and also whether or not they can provide their own transportation on those 2 days. But again, it gets another wave of kids back in at least 4 days a week. So the other thing that we're working on, which I alluded to in my email I sent to parents a couple of weeks ago, is looking at alternating Wednesdays. So we've got a lot of information and data around the fact that deep cleaning Wednesdays aren't really needed as once thought when we did our plan in August. I think that you'll start to see other districts doing this as well. We've worked with and attended seminars with folks from Harvard School of Public Health, and they feel like that it's not a great use of resource anymore. And I think we talked about that the last meeting, that's something that we're looking at doing. So the caveat around that is, in order for that to work and for us to move forward with that in January, we feel really strongly about the fact that unless it's going to be tied to more synchronous learning for kids, it's really not worth us doing, because right now Wednesdays are all day synchronous for kids or half day synchronous for kids. And if we went to a model where kids came in, say cohort A came in on Wednesday and cohort B was home, then that just adds another remote day to those children. So if we don't have those kids in cohort B in synchronous learning with cohort A in that example, then we don't think it's a good model to go to. So we're working on that. Our goal is to get more synchronous learning, not less synchronous learning. So we feel like without having that synchronous piece in there, it's actually going to have half your kids getting less synchronous learning on Wednesdays as opposed to getting more synchronous learning. It's the only day. It's the only day. Right. 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 And I think the other piece too is that teachers have done a really nice job as using Wednesday as a kickoff point for instruction, so that we started our first day of school like that with remote, and we've continued that same cycle through. So they're in a pretty good groove with that. But again, if we're not going to have the kids that aren't in person synchronized in there, to us, it's not worth doing, because we're just adding another remote day to kids and parents, and we don't think that's the good thing to do here. So that whole synchronous half day that they have on Wednesdays, we feel is important. It's a good grounding day. It's the one time kids are together. But if we can get half the kids in on that day and the other half synchronized learning, then we're going to really push forward with that model. I have to say that the elementary principals are really pushing me hard on the half day model that we put out there. That didn't get a lot of support from both parents and probably more classroom teachers than staff overall supported it. But looking at that 4-day model, it's extremely expensive. And I think if we wanted to do it, the only way we could actually do it, we redid the calculations, and we were thinking for one school we could probably do it at about 225,000 for Memorial, additional money, but it looks like it's going to be up to 600,000 for a K-5. You know, so that's, and again, not budgeted for, right? So we just can't, we're not the federal government, you just can't print more money. You know, that's kind of the issue around that. But in terms of instruction and learning, I know the classroom teachers that I spoke to, I know the principals are really high on the fact that getting kids in 4 days a week for that 2.5 hour block, again, when you back out lunch, recess, and a special out of that time, it's more instructional time than, you know, using the 2 day. They feel pretty strongly about that, but there's a lot, you know, involved with that in terms of people's schedules. I know I got some feedback from people saying, thank you for not going forward that, because it would really mess up, you know, what we have in place for our schedule. So we're going to continue to look at that. I know I put in my email, we're going to look at that, revisit it again in January, but for the more immediate term, it's bringing our special education kids back on January 4th, and then looking at a way that we can get those Wednesdays in with synchronous learning for all kids. And I think that's, you know, that's kind of where we're at right now.
So Jeff, is there any barriers on the alternating Wednesday, or is there anything else that needs to be done in order for that to occur?
Well, we'd have to increase transportation on that day because we're not currently transporting kids on Wednesday. So that would be an increased cost. So we'd have to run all 18 buses or 20 buses on that day in order for that to work. So that's an increase. But I think that's a little bit easier to take than some of the, again, if we can get the synchronous and get half the kids in and have the synchronous learning during the day, that's worth it, because it's another day for kids to be together and be in person, and they would alternate every other week. So that's probably, you know, trying to get some sort of agreement or something around that synchronous learning piece would be an important part of getting the Wednesdays.
In terms of busing, I want to make sure that I remember that even if we do get additional stimulus money in the new year, which would be I'm not even going to say it's a lovely thing. I think it's critical to make sure that we get that, hopefully. But busing is never paid for by any part of the CARES Act. Is that correct? Or any part of what we've been kind of reimbursed for at this point. So even though we have these mandates, we aren't able to.
Any of that CARES Act or any of that for transportation.
Right.
None of that.
Right. That's kind of one of those things that just won't ever get covered. Okay.
So I think there's, you know, two good roads in here that we think are important. I mean, you know, I think one of the things that we have to really watch is whether or not we hit a real big surge here after Thanksgiving. I know that, you know, we're 7 days out, and today we had a couple of positives, so we need to kind of look at that and see where that goes. But I think that plan for January would be a logical next step in terms of getting more kids in either Wednesdays and or getting our special education population as well.
Okay. Does anyone else on the committee have anything that they would like to ask, discuss, understand about that? No? Okay. I'm going to then open this up to public comment. If you could raise your hands, if you would like to be brought over on video for public comment, please remember to state your name and your address, preferably. You'll have up to 3 minutes to comment. Thank you, Jack. I'm glad that you can make it. Give me 1 second, Ellen, before you bring him over. At this point, any committee member can ask a clarifying question, but otherwise all comments will be taken under advisement. The committee will devote up to 15 minutes for this particular public comments section. But I do want to let you know that if you're unable to provide your comments during that time, please email us on this issue or any other at the SC Chair email. So scchair@email.medfield.net. All of those emails are forwarded without comment to the full committee, as well as to Dr. Marston. And Jack, if you would like to go ahead, I'd be very happy to hear from you. And thank you so much for being understanding about the
no problem.
the previous comment. I'm not quite getting you.
Sorry, can you hear me?
I can now.
All right. Sorry, this is my first meeting.
That's all right.
So I just wanted to just provide a few facts. I'm a teacher at Needham and at the middle school. And so just wanted to give you some facts quick, just to kind of throw it out there. We talked with Dr. Marsden. I mentioned beforehand this schedule. So just an idea. So in Needham, I see my students. I teach 7th grade math. I see my students every single day. So we have students that are in school and students that are remote. Students that are in school get 50-minute classes. Students that are remote on Zoom get 45 minutes. So I just kind of did a quick little comparison. So with Medfield, I just talked with my daughter. So she'll get 2 classes live, 35 minutes, plus a 20-minute on Wednesday, which is 90 minutes. So that would be like, just say for a math class. And so my math class for that same week, and I just adjusted it because we do it slightly different. We have the kids come in a full week, so I adjusted it. So 2 live classes at 50 minutes, plus 2 Zoom classes at 45 minutes, and then a 35-minute on Wednesday where we do remote for Zoom, which would come out to 225 minutes just for that one class. If you do the math on that too, and just times it by 4 for the 4 core classes. So Medfield has 360 and Needham we're at 900 minutes just for a week. And actually what I'm doing now too is I actually have my daughter Sophie coming on my Zooms on Thursday, Friday. And my principal's great in allowing that. And so she actually gets 90 minutes from me a week, which I'm happy to do. But again, I just feel like Medfield's a great town and I feel like we can do this. I love, like I said, I think the schedule, not perfect in Needham, but it's something that really works. And I want to see my students every single day. And so I know that Zoom's not perfect, but it allows me to be able to, I still do the breakout room, still do the same material. And so I'm able to connect with students. I have Zoom after schools every day. When students are in, I'm able to connect with them. So I feel like Medfield can get there. And for my kids, it hurts. For me, that's where it's just frustrating and upsetting is I know Medfield is a great town. Needham's a great town. I feel like we can do the same. And I just hope that we're striving to get there for the kids. For me as a teacher, I could do whatever, that's fine this year, but for the kids, they're losing out. That's a lot of time on learning that we can get back. And I feel like that's just the point that I wanted to make, that I think we can get there and do that. I just feel like, in the spring was different. We were all stuck in this situation, social, emotionally, for the kids. And I get that now, but I feel like now we got to start to push forward a little bit more. This was, maybe September. Now we're in December. And I think we're all just kind of looking at it and saying, I don't want it to be a lost year. I know we're all trying our best, but I feel like that's my piece here, that I just want us to get to kind of something closer to what we're doing at Needham. I know we can do it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate your comments. Owen, can you bring over Lauren, please? And then Steve.
Renee is waiting first.
Oh, Renee is waiting first. I'm so sorry. I can't, I don't always see them. Okay, Renee, go ahead, please.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so first I do want to say thank you for your efforts in trying to get us back every other Wednesday. And I really appreciate what you said tonight, Dr. Marsden, because that was my big concern. I was not a big fan of trading an in-person day for another full remote day. So to hear that we're trying to move towards synchronous learning in parallel with that on that Wednesday is absolutely fantastic news. On that same note, I want to talk a little bit about equity, because we heard a lot about that when we were setting these back to school rules, goals and objectives in place. And I am I'm a lot concerned about the equity across the town. So my kids are both in middle school, so I'm speaking, kind of first person from that perspective, but also from others I've heard about anecdotally in other grades. The equity of the education our kids are getting within Medfield is very teacher cluster cohort dependent. So my kids have peers who are done by 10 a.m. on their off days. And my kids, for the most part, are taking 4 or 5 hours to do their work. Whether they're actually doing it in their rooms all day, I don't know, but they spend a good chunk of the day. But there's clearly a lack of equity if some kids have 3, 4, 5 hours of work and others have 1 or 2 hours. So I really don't see where we've gotten to that true model of having 15 hours of learning on the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday model. And also in terms of equity, I know we talked a lot about not wanting to compare to other towns, but that's the reality we're in. Our teachers are teaching a lesson on Monday and Tuesday to cohort A, and they're teaching the same lesson to cohort B on Thursdays and Fridays. These other towns that are closer to partial to a full synchronous model, the kids are getting more hours of education. And to keep hearing that we're all in the same boat is extremely frustrating because we're not. My kids have cousins in similar grades who are much more ahead of them because they're learning 4 to 5 days a week. My kids are only learning 2 days a week. On Thursday and Friday, they are just practicing what they learned on Monday and Tuesday. They're not getting 5 days of learning. And I just really feel like we're falling behind these other towns. And I understand with the uptick in cases, getting us back full time is probably a very low chance of happening. But I would really like us to see us demand more synchronous learning from our teachers. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Appreciate that. Owen, who did I have up next? Was it Steve or Lauren? Lauren.
Hello.
Go ahead, Lauren. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me and for taking the public comments. I just wanted to speak tonight both as a parent of a second grader, and I'm also an educator as well. I work down the road in Westwood at the high school. This is my 20th year there. And just as the previous, I forget his name, the man that spoke, that is a teacher in Needham, I too am teaching all of my students every day at Westwood. It's not easy, but it's something that across the district, me and all of my teachers at the high school are doing. We're seeing all of our kids whenever their classes meet, both in person and when they're at home remotely. And I feel like it's making a dramatic difference in terms of what they're learning and what they're getting out of things. I'm glad to hear that there's an effort and there's a thought about how to do more in-person days, even if that's alternating the Wednesdays. And I think it's really important, the point that you said, Dr. Marsden, about trying to include direct instruction for students that are at home on those days, because it seems like we're expecting a little bit too much of our students. There needs to be more opportunities for students to receive feedback from their teachers on those remote days to really reinforce the content that the teachers are presenting in the videos that kids are watching in virtual notebooks. My other thought is, like, even if teachers are covering the content they normally would in a typical school year, I just wonder how they're assessing what students are learning and how are they assessing whether the students are really retaining the information. I mean, it's got to be tough. My son goes to school Monday, Tuesday, remote Wednesday, but then he doesn't really see his teacher and get any feedback for several days. And working independently, he's 7. I don't know that he's really understanding what is being presented on those videos and really taking it in and really learning it. And I just wonder how we're assessing that. It seems like there's a recognition that what's happening on the remote days isn't great. So I just wonder what we're going to do to fix that and to make that better so that there's kids are getting the opportunity to learn more directly from their teachers, not just by watching videos. I also wonder how we're going to provide students with differentiation on learning days. It seems like we're trying to fit everybody into one box and assuming everyone's going to learn the same way and the same material at the same pace. And that just doesn't seem realistic. That's never how it works in a typical year. I know this isn't a typical year, but we do need to be able to provide differentiation, and we need to provide informal feedback. And that's really important, I know, as a teacher, to understanding what my kids are doing and recognizing who needs help, who needs one-on-one attention. And if we're only seeing the kids twice, that's going to be really hard to do. I don't really understand how the teachers are doing it. I also worry about the long-term consequences, not only for how kids are what they're learning, but also what's it going to mean for their next year when we come back to school and they're expected to sit still and pay attention for 5 days a week when they haven't done that in over a year. I think it's going to be hard on every kid, not just the younger kids.
I'm going to ask you to wrap it up just a little bit, Lauren. Thanks.
Yep. And then I guess my last thought is, why can't we expect the teachers to teach all the students every day? Why are we okay with teachers only teaching the students that are in front of them on those particular days? It should be like, my job is to teach all my kids every day. I don't understand why we're not expecting that of the teachers this year too. That's all. Thank you,
Lauren. I appreciate it. All right, we have Steve, and that'll be the last comment that we take for this particular portion. Steve, you have the floor.
Thank you. So it seems like the only way we can get all of our students back to school full-time is to move to 3 feet. And according to the surveys that were sent out, the majority of residents feel safe and comfortable sending their kids back at 3 feet. Leo, I know you stated this as well. Also, according to the surveys, if kids were sent back to school at 3 feet, only 17% would opt out and go into cohort D. I wonder what the metrics would be if this happened. Would we have 4 feet, 4.5 feet, or even 5 feet? I want our school committee to be proactive, similar to Stoughton's, and say we will send our kids back at 3 feet, even if it means following the recommendations of DEACE and the American Association of Pediatrics. The new CDC guidelines have cut quarantine times in almost half. So that gets our kids back to school 7 days, and also as well as the teachers. So I know that we are still stuck on this 6 foot metric. And I don't understand why we are married to that, especially with DEACE and AAP. Why are we not moving back to 3 feet? I've heard many school committee members and the superintendent say they want to do anything they possibly can to get the kids back. Now's the time. Stoughton actually voted on it and moved forward and did it. Why aren't we? Why isn't any of our school committee members making a motion tonight to get our kids back to school in full time at 3 feet? We've seen so many articles and stories of suicides, depression, emotional issues, loneliness, isolation, and it's rampant. And a couple of towns over, a kid committed suicide. So we have to do something to make this better for our kids. And staying back and saying, well, 6 feet is not going to get our kids back in school. And it's keeping our kids out. Thank you. So I would like a motion. If somebody could make a motion tonight to do that, and actually the school committee to make a vote on that, that would be great.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Steve, you still there? Do you know of any school districts that are at 3 feet?
I know Stoughton just said that they're going back at 3 feet, I think in January. And I think Hingham said I believe I read somewhere that Hingham said the same thing. That in January, I think they're going to be going back. I just heard that Dover might be going back K through 5 as well.
Dover's at 5.5. They're not at 3 feet.
Okay. So well, my question is, if you're
So
following,
Steve,
if you're following these numbers, and
one last
if
thing,
17% of kids opt out, what are our metrics?
Steve, one last thing about Stoughton too. So I know I mentioned before that I'm very, very good friends with the superintendent. And so they're able to be very close to 6 feet, even as they're going back. The intention of being full back won't be until after February vacation. But the main reason is because starting the school year, they had 65% of their population was all remote. And so they have so many people who are going to stay all remote that's how they're getting them back in Stoughton at that level.
Yep. And they're
Okay,
using
I'm
that 3
gonna
foot
bring
metric.
this conversation to a close for right now. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now.
Andrew, I've got Elizabeth Panciaco, Carrie White. Who are the other two? Andrew Barrett?
I think it's Ava O'Toole and
Oh, I can't hear you, Andrew.
I'm sorry, I can hear you.
Oh gosh, she was there. Carrie with a K.
I think Ava O'Toole is the senior rep. And I just texted Carrie reminding her we were just talking about the meeting tonight. So we'll see if she gets on.
Yeah, she was on earlier, so maybe she popped out.
Okay, so why don't we start with Elizabeth? Hi,
Hello,
Elizabeth.
everyone. I'm Elizabeth Panciaco, and I'm the representative for the class of 2023. So as of today, the term 1 report cards came out. So that means term 1 is over, which is good. And it feels good to get one term past us. So far, everyone's gotten the hang of everything. I actually just sent out a Google form survey for my class Facebook, and I was looking for responses and maybe some suggestions about, moving forward with this hybrid learning. But most of the responses were very positive. Everyone likes the hybrid. We think it's a good strategy. And on behalf of a student perspective, we like the way we're learning right now. We think it's very beneficial for us, and we approve of everything based off of what I'm hearing. Another thing is so for student government, actually, we decided to sell blankets as a fundraiser. We got designs and they look really good. So we're hoping to get those selling soon. I'll keep you updated with all the information. This is just something while I was listening to this meeting, based on the emotional support that we get here at Medfield. Personally, I think it's great. The guidance counselors, they're really great. All the teachers too, we're getting all the support we need. I can speak on personal experience. I needed some help with organization, and I just reached out to my guidance counselor and she was great. So we're getting really good support there. But so far, everything is going good. So yeah, that's all I have.
That is great to hear. Elizabeth, I am so glad that you are selling blankets, because I have to tell you, I have been thinking about fundraisers, and I was like, we should sell blankets. We should sell those comfies, like the enormous hooded sweatshirts, which would be totally cool. But I
gotta say, Jess, we could use them right now. It's a little cold in here.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is why I'm dressed like Nanook of the North right now. But one thing I wanted to put by you, as well as the rest of your representatives, and I'll kind of, or class representatives, as well as you, Andrew, is the MASC, which is the Mass Association of School Committees, has a number of resolutions that they've passed this year. And one of them, I thought, I would be interested to know what our high school population thought of it. And if you want to come back to us in January, when you come in next time, and kind of just give us a really, really informal kind of straw poll report on this. One of the recommendations or the resolutions that they have is lowering the voting age for people in municipal elections to 16, because the idea behind that, and I know it's happened in Brookline, is that many of the decisions you make at the municipal level are the ones that affect you the most. Things like school committee elections, select board elections. And I just kind of wonder what our student population thinks about that, because there has been such an emphasis on civics. Kind of where do you guys fall in terms of thinking whether that's a good idea? Do you think people would take it seriously? Would that be something that you'd even be interested in kind of exploring? And this is really just kind of a general question around making sure that we're hearing your voices, if you're interested in that. And I can send you the text of the resolution, and also kind of send you some background information if you're interested in kind of understanding a little bit more about it. Would you guys be up for at least kind of talking to your peers about that and kind of bringing that back to us the next time you come through?
Yeah, definitely.
Elizabeth, or?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. All right. So would you like to go, Carrie? Thank you, Elizabeth.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't hear Elizabeth's speech, but I bet I will repeat some of what she said.
That's okay.
Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Carrie White, and I'm the representative to school committee for the class of 2022. So basically what I did was I posted a Google form in the class of 2022's Facebook group to get more specific feedback on like how the juniors have been, like basically their feedback on remote learning. And here are like the main takeaways. So a lot of people said that it's definitely improved since term 1. I think that's mostly because like people are more in a routine and they're getting used to it more. And then teachers, for as far as the remote check-ins, teachers have made it more clear when the check-ins are, and students again are getting into more of a routine. And some are still a little confusing, especially for the juniors, the new chem teachers. Things have been switching around, which was getting a little complicated. And then students still believe that the check-ins are disruptive to their work and not super beneficial. And
those are the 5-minute check-ins, right, Carrie? Not so much the ones where your teachers decide to do synchronous learning, but really those kind of 5-minute kind of in and outs.
Yeah. Okay. So basically they said that I find that some of my teachers do like the 5-minute check-ins, and then some of them like actually do like kind of synchronized learning. And they say that the check-ins only seem to be helpful when when they're actually learning material, because otherwise they feel like it's kind of just cutting into their workday. And they think that if kids have questions or specific like questions with the work, then they should just go to their teachers like designated Zoom extra help times, or just email their teachers individually rather than like making the whole class like stop what they're doing at home and join. And then other than that, I think people mentioned that they're able to get a lot of work done on their own time at home, like following their own schedules. And for Wednesdays, they said that they feel very long and they're manageable, but also it gets very tiring. And I think that's pretty much it about that. But as far as how the class of 2022 is doing, everyone's doing really well, and everyone seems to have figured out what works best for them throughout the school year so far. And winter sports are starting soon, which is very exciting for many juniors, and clubs seem to be in full throttle. And as far as student government, our Chipotle fundraiser was a huge success. So thank you to everyone who contributed to that. It means a lot to us. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks, Carrie.
Appreciate it. Do we have any of our other representatives? Andrew, do you see him in there?
Yeah, so Ava and Catherine are not going to be able to make it tonight.
Okay. All right. I will send them an explanatory email about the municipal elections and the lowering the voting age thing. But yeah, thank you so much. And also, please always come back to us this whole year. Please come back to us, whatever learning model we're in. Keep telling us what it is that you're experiencing right there. Oh, Andrew, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying, I think there was a communication issue for Ava and Catherine, so that's why they're not here tonight.
It's, that is pretty much the story of my entire year right there. Yeah. It's just tough. Thanks. Would anybody else like to ask any of the student representatives questions generally about what's going on? Megan?
But I think that they have already.
Oh, they're gone.
I bet you could pass it on to Andrew, and Andrew will pass it on. And
well, it was just, I was going to put them on the spot a little bit. I just wanted to kind of take just a quick straw poll, as Jess says, to Carrie, I think, had mentioned that some of the 5-minute check-ins do turn into a little bit more synchronous learning. And so I just wanted to get the feedback from them, how much they actually feel like they are getting in the remote days. And if that's stable, or if it's, definitely static from week to week, or if it's increasing or decreasing or what. But I don't think you can answer on their behalf, but I mean, you can answer for yourself.
But I can answer on my own behalf.
Yeah.
I have something to say. I was going to talk about this actually later. So basically my experience is that I have 2 classes now that live stream. One of them is a science class and one of them is a math class. And in my experience, it really depends on the content that they are presenting and also sort of the way that they're presenting. So for example, in my calculus class, if we're learning about like finding the derivative of like a parametric equation, it's going to be kind of hard to grasp that over a Zoom call sitting in my bedroom after I've been on Zoom for the past 5 hours. I think that would probably be the same for everyone in that situation. But for my anatomy class, my teacher will share her screen and she'll go through slides. We'll all be taking notes, and it's almost like we're in class. And she's one of those 3D mics, and you know, she's the whole setup. So stuff like that, where it's a little bit more, you know, kind of cohesive and put together. And that's not to say that my math class isn't, you know, beneficial, but it's definitely different from what it would be like to be actually in person. And as far as the 5-minute Zoom goes, those, I understand that they're for attendance purposes and to kind of calibrate people for their work on that day. But a lot of the times I have to agree with what Carrie was saying, and what she found in her poll is that it does just turn into like kind of like a hi-bye situation where it's just, hi, go look on Google Classroom, here's the work for today, and then you go and run off and do a different subject because that's what you're working on before the Zoom call started. So that's something that I think can be probably refined and tweaked in the model, but that's probably one of my only complaints, and most students' only complaints about it right now.
Do you find that you don't have questions during those check-ins because you don't know what the assignment is at that point yet?
Yeah, either that, or like today I had like, so for, I keep bringing up my math class, but I have my math class check-in at noon today, or it was right before noon. And I had done my assignment like 3 hours earlier. And I had a question, but I wasn't going to wait 3 hours to finish the assignment. So I kind of just went online or looked in the back of the textbook and kind of figured it out for myself. So I think that kind of, that gap there definitely changes the situation for questions. And if I do have a question, most of the time I'll go to an extra help session because I know that the teacher's gonna be able to dedicate more time to me and my question, rather than just kind of trying to cram it at the beginning of class so they can get off the call and start with their actual class and what they want to get across to the kids in person. Because I know that that's the teacher's kind of like gold standard. That's what they're focused on, and that's not, the Zoom check-ins are not what they're after, you know?
Right. And I have heard feedback from my own family members that 5 minutes, you feel bad asking a question because you know the teacher is kind of needing to teach their other class. So thank you for your feedback.
Yeah, thank you.
I think this has been really helpful, and thank you. And please pass on to Carrie and Elizabeth, seeking feedback from their classmates and putting up a Google form and whatnot. This is really important information for us. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I hope they're still maybe at least listening, or I'll send them an email. So thanks. Oh.
Let's see.
So Madam Chair, as you know, our transportation contract expires at the end of this year, so we need to get out to bid. Included in your materials is the bid document that we're putting out to bid once you have seen it tonight. And then we have an opening in a couple of weeks. And Michael, do you think we'll have the school committee vote at the 17th or no? Yeah, so we should be our next meeting ready to have you take a look at what the bid came out to be, and then hopefully vote to support the contract going forward. So as you know, you've heard me talk about this a lot, that we don't typically get more than one bidder. And that's kind of what happens in every school district. So we'll see how that works out this time, whether we get more than one bidder. If you remember last time, I had asked the school committee not to approve the contract based on the numbers. And so we'll see how it goes, but you have to have buses to bring kids to school. So that's kind of in a tough situation here. So if we get if we get more than one bid, like the law is designed to do, open bidding and competition, that would be great. If we don't, then we'll get the same bidder that Medfield's got the last 40 years. So, Michael, did you want to add anything to that, or?
No, I mean, as of right now, only 2 companies have pulled papers.
So is that one more than usual?
Usually we do get 3 or 4 that pull papers, but only 1 that submits.
Okay. Well, we will see what the future holds. I look forward to
Yeah, I would
seeing
say,
that.
like, for instance, in my former district, we would have the same thing happen where one person would bid. And then at the bid opening, we would have the person who owns a company that bus companies buy buses from. So that person wanted to know how many new buses he was going to be able to sell based on the bid specs. And so you never really get that competition, which I know that it's been a topic statewide for the last few years because people are kind of tired of it, but we'll see what happens this time.
Yeah, I went to a really interesting session on busing, and I don't want to slow down our meeting at all, but an interesting session on the last time I was able to actually go to an MACS or MASC conference, and the issues in the eastern part of the state are very much around who chooses to bid, while the issues in the western part of the state are very much around complete scarcity of resources. And it really does always make you understand just how we do seem to live in 2 very different states with 2 very different levels of resources. And it's always a great reminder for kind of how privileged we are in Medfield in general, but also in the eastern part of the state while we don't get great competition, it's a very different kind of issue than what our cohorts are in the Western Mass. Okay, so I think we are going to table the discussion on the MASC resolution, or the MASC resolution on the MCAS high stakes testing, because we do, I think, need to spend a little bit more time understanding specifically what it says. So we're going to table that until December 17th, if everyone is good with that. Which brings us to the next agenda item, which is looking at the policy and budget subcommittee liaisons. And this basically came up mostly so that a couple of things, just housekeeping. So I can roll off of the budget subcommittee and appoint Megan to be the single liaison for the school committee to the warrant committee. And then also, because Megan likes lots of jobs, I thought we would roll her off of the policy subcommittee, but she would actually prefer to stay on with Tim, and Tim is good with that. So we won't make any changes to that, but we will vote to roll me off and to make Megan the liaison to the warrant committee. Does anybody have any discussion around that?
Yeah, I do. I have a question. Don't we normally have 2 people per subcommittee?
We do. We can have a subcommittee of 1 as well.
Right. Yeah.
So,
but But I'm wondering, because budget is such a huge committee. I mean, right. The importance is immense.
Yes.
That I'm not sure that one person.
Well, it's funny because it's both huge and it's a kind of it's a communication job in a lot of ways, but it's not, Megan isn't, well, first of all, I'm playing to Megan's strengths, which is the fact that this woman is like a savant with a spreadsheet. I have to say, yes, I think so. Working with you last year, I could talk, but she is
Did you hear that, Jeff?
Right. So listen
Not
up,
you, Jeff.
Mr.
Jeff.
Glenn. She is a savant. No, but you know, I was very good at communicating. But I really saw that Megan had a real skill with being able to kind of drill down on details.
Okay, I
the
would
way
just
that-
like to ask a question to Megan, Jeff, and Michael. Do you guys think one member on the subcommittee is enough, or should we have another? Because of the gravitas of this subcommittee, I would say. I'd love to get advice.
Well, I mean, I think if one person, because it's really the liaison with the warrant committee too, and with Michael and I as we build the budget, which we started our 50 budget meetings this week with individual departments. So I think it can be done, but I totally hear what you're saying, and it has a lot to it. So you could have two people, but I think Megan could absolutely do it as a liaison.
Well, I'm not saying you're not capable.
No, I know that. Oh, I know
Sorry,
that.
that's not where I'm getting
No,
at.
I know that.
And this, I mean, this is kind of based off of conversations that Megan and I had previously around her assignments. I am concerned that the sheriff's,
I'm not sure that's even still.
is that even
I don't know.
happening anymore? Has it just kind of gone poof?
He
into
got
roll?
reelected, so. You know.
All right, but you're still the financial secretary, so you're assigning warrants every
Right,
week.
and we decided that whoever was
Policy.
on the budget subcommittee should probably be signing the warrants because they're kind of
Right,
hand in
right.
hand.
Right.
So I don't mind doing that. What I did appreciate about being on a subcommittee with you or another person was that it was your second year in the role, and so there's sort of a shadowing that happens. And
Right.
I don't want to do this again next year. So I'm just saying that now.
Yeah, no, but that's
There
important.
is like sort of a.
And I'm glad
a
we're having this
passing of the
conversation.
torch, and it's good to like, I couldn't have done it myself, having not seen you do it, whereas someone can kind of do it with me this year and then pass it off to them. That's the point.
I agree. Yeah.
Is there anyone?
No,
it's not- It's not really about signing warrants. It's really about
Budget subcommittee.
being on the budget subcommittee and being able to, am I unmuted? Yes. So it's really about being part of that process. I think that one of the things I found, one of the most useful things was really being able to be present at warrant committee meetings. So, which is actually so much easier now through Zoom. I'm concerned that your Dale Street responsibilities, and one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that that Megan and Leo need to really devote their time to this very important project that we can't we can't just let go because there's a pandemic. Like this is long-term stuff. So I'm very happy to have anybody who would like to be on the budget subcommittee be on it with Megan. And sorry, Megan, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I maybe just hadn't talked about it for a while. And I knew that I needed to kind of roll off. But if there's anybody here who would like to be part of that, or we can again table this. There's no, basically we're tabling the meeting. No, but if we want to have further discussions about this, I'm perfectly fine with that.
I'm glad to be on it if you want. I'm also glad. I think it's a great topic on the having two people. I think part of it was that committee.
For sure.
We do recognize in the policy, it does create a little bit more effort around communications and making sure we're compliant. But having another individual where you can at least kind of bounce ideas off helps us longer term with a better decision. So,
and again, I am also still happy to be part of that process. I would just end up taking a lot lighter load this year.
Yeah, I'm actually not on a subcommittee that I.
Well, Anna May.
So,
not working hard enough. We were giving you a break.
No, because it's all hands on deck, right? No one needs everybody needs a break, but no one really needs it. This is what I signed up for, and I am no longer chair, so I feel like I need to step up. So I'm happy to.
Because you're a major slacker. No. Okay, tell you what, let's have this discussion. No, I think that, I think what I'd like to do is let's table this till, and we'll continue to talk about how we want to kind of organize. You know, so I'll talk to people individually about what they would like to do.
Again, I'm happy to.
Great, okay, okay. So let's make sure that we do this.
All right, well.
So
I'm happy to if Anna Mae were to choose that for the record.
I'm sorry, I wasn't like,
hey, I gotta have it. So all,
Yes.
just so we're all on the same.
No, exactly.
I have to tell you, I'm actually a little sad not to be doing it, which I know there are people on the warrant committee who won't believe that, but I'm a little sad not to be doing it, but with the workload with the chair, it's
For sure. No, and
it's
I
kind of a
understand.
little overwhelming.
So,
Plus, you want to learn her.
right, and I would also like to have somebody, you know, learn at the feet of the man.
so does this also mean that Tim will be the solo policy person?
Anna,
You're-
Megan and Tim will continue to be
Okay.
on policy.
So if I am willing, what do we need to table?
Talk to me, Tim. Do you feel like you desperately want to be on budget subcommittee? Because I mean, we're all very qualified. It's not like we're being as laissez-faire or kind of, you know, like loosey-goosey about this as it sounds.
No, I'm glad to make a motion to, you know, I don't need more discussion. I'm supportive of Anna Mae.
Okay.
And if nobody else was volunteering, I was glad to volunteer.
Amen. That's
Happy
what I
to
like about you guys.
If Anna Mae does that.
All right, so do I hear a motion to have the budget subcommittee be comprised of Anna Mae O'Shea Brooke and Megan Glenn for the fiscal year 22 budget process?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Tim, okay, I'm gonna do a roll call vote. Leo,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Megan,
Aye.
Anna Mae,
Aye.
I don't know what you signed up for.
Riley, aye, and the motion carries. All right. And at this point, open this up for public comment because I do see that there is one person who is interested in commenting. And we did vote. So if Chris would like to come over. All right, Chris, you have the floor.
Hi, yeah, it's just a point of order. There have been technical difficulties tonight that I don't know if you're aware of. Not everyone at the meeting could be heard on the committee as they were talking. So I just wanted to let you know that because with the remote, that's often a problem. So I don't know going forward with meetings, if there's technical difficulties, what the best way is. I don't know whether Owen can have a separate alert system. But there were times during the meeting tonight where people could not be heard at all when they were talking. So I just wanted to let you know that. That was it. You're muted right now, Jess.
I cannot wait. I'm sorry. I am like about here with this pandemic. I am about to, but I will recover, as will we all. We all have our moments. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. And, you know, we are trying to work out a system where somebody can specifically text Owen who, so that there's nobody texting us within the meeting, which is kind of, you know, one of those open meeting law problems that we wouldn't want to do, but we are trying to work on that. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
was it
an open meeting law issue when people cannot be heard either too. So you're kind of trading off different issues here. So
I'm so sorry. What did you just say, Chris? I wasn't concentrating well enough to hear.
I said, when you mentioned the open meeting law issue with the commenting, it is also an open meeting law issue when members of the committee cannot be heard.
Right.
So
exactly. You're right. So it's, you know, darned if you do and darned if you don't.
Right.
So thanks, Chris. Okay.
Yep.
Hi, Kristen.
Hi. Happy to be the one who texts Owen if you want me to.
Perfect.
Oh, just have Jeff text me or Owen can email me his phone number and I'm here anyways. So.
All right. Well, problem solved.
Beam me back.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Kristen.
Thanks, Kristen.
Okay, so at this point, I'm going to ask for other items since posting.
None at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, so let's move on to old business. We have donations.
Thank you. So we have a few donations that I ask you to approve as presented. $1,436 to Memorial Gift Fund from Memorial PTO for the Scholastic Book Flick subscription. $562.50 to the Dale Street gift account for the October 30th, 2020 Professional Development Staff Lunch. $2,500 to the Medfield CPAC from the Lewis and Mary K. Smith Family Foundation. And $1,000 donation to the Medfield School Lunch Program from anonymous donor. I ask you to approve as presented.
We have a motion to approve as presented. I think we have
Second.
All right. All right.
Tim?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
I'm sorry, Megan?
Aye.
I wasn't, I was not unmuted. Anime?
Aye.
And Jessica Riley, aye. The motion passes. Okay. Next, the superintendent's evaluation update. So I will say I'd like to, we've been talking about this for a while, and it seems like there's always so much business to do, but I do think it's unfair to Dr. Marsden to not wrap this up within this calendar year, certainly. So I would like to present Dr. Marsden's evaluation at the next meeting on December 17th. So I will send out the forms and last year's goals tomorrow morning, and then Jeff will send out his self-report on Monday, his kind of evaluation of his goals. If you could get me your evaluation by next Friday evening, I'll compile the committee's evaluations and we'll present the aggregate to the committee meeting on the 17th, unless something kind of unforeseen comes up. But one thing I do want to say is that this has been, it's silly to even just say this, but this has been an insane year. And a lot of the months seem to just kind of glom together. And I want to be very sure that we are evaluating Jeff or Dr. Marsden on the period in which this evaluation is supposed to cover, which is from June 30th or July 1st of 2019 to June 2020. However, given that there is a 3.5 month period from March 13th to June 30th, that was kind of beyond anyone's expectations. As you look at the goals, I think many of them will continue to track because they're aligned with the principles of our strategic plan. But then again, if there are comments or a narrative that you would like to employ that kind of further discusses that March to June 2020 period, I think that's well within the scope of kind of meaningful feedback. You know, hopefully we'll never have another pandemic, but certainly if you want to be thinking about that in terms of, you know, we wrote those goals assuming that children would be in school. And I don't know if you remember that shock on March 12th, when we realized the kids might not go to school again for a while. And that really kind of set the world on its ear and was just so completely unanticipated. So I know that you will all do your best, your strivers, but I do want to make sure that you kind of go back, look at the minutes, look at your notes, really figure out what was happening during that period of time, which I know feels like a very long time ago now, but I want to make sure that we give him a fair evaluation within that period of time. Okay. Does that time frame sound reasonable to you? Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. Then the next item on the agenda is the Dale Street School Project, which will be Jeff, Anime, and Leo, and this is an update simply. So if you want to go ahead.
Sure. We just had a communication subcommittee meeting today, And so I just want to report that the PSR is up. The draft version is up on the website, is or not? Soon to be. Okay, tomorrow morning. Okay, thank you. And that is a draft. And we did agree at, I believe, the last forum that we would make that available before the school building committee votes on it next week. I believe it's the 9th. And another update is that the traffic engineer submitted some questions that would be valuable for the Wheelock neighborhood residents to take. That'll be open to everyone, but people will indicate whether or not they're a neighbor, so to speak. So that should be going out perhaps next week, but we do want to gather more information, and that'll just be another touch point in with all the other data that is being collected. And we're going to have a training from the Office of Campaign and Political Finance, hopefully in January, really to clarify the questions of regulations that do and do not permit essentially advocacy versus education. And we don't want to cross that line. We want to be very mindful as a school building committee that because there is a fine line versus advocacy, and then our job is really to educate. So that's all I need to say. Leo, do you have anything to add, or Dr. Marsden?
Nope, that was a pretty good summary because there was a lot of discussion was on the PSR, and we also had the open presentation at the other meeting that was very nice, where they presented the the 3D views and everything at that building meeting. So and they've been very good to work with around that. So and of course people have been coming up with more questions, of course. So the education and the communication is working and doing what it's supposed to. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I think, and one of the committee members had mentioned he had served on the, when the high school was being built, and that initially did not pass. So we want to be very mindful that we don't want to take anything for granted. And we just want to keep the public informed. So we're going to work really hard to continue that. So, so that we can have a successful project.
And I would also add just that there's a sustainability subcommittee that's starting to meet as well.
That's right.
They're going to be looking at some of the energy systems that we're going to be having in the new school. So that's exciting too, as members of the energy committee and also members of the school building committee that are going to be a part of that. And, try to see whether or not we're going to be net zero or how that's going to work and what type of certification we're going to get in terms of our new building. So I think that's really exciting too. And also analyze the costs and the reliability of those systems as well. So that's a whole other big part of the project as well.
For sure.
Thank you, Jeff. I had forgotten about that. That was a significant part of the last meeting, was about the, about the energy subcommittee. And I think the learning more about that is going to be very helpful for everybody.
For sure.
Because always a lot of questions about that. And I know Michael does a lot here with the current facilities on energy savings. And I think having that information will be great moving forward.
Look for the PSR draft that will be posted. It's only 1,902 pages right now. So some light reading for the weekend.
Just get rid of those last two.
No, it's some light reading. So I know that some folks will be doing that. So
there's a study group forming.
Yeah, the group is right.
Thankfully, they marked off in the table of contents everything that is a new addition.
Oh, good. All right. Anything else on Dale Street at this point? Okay, so then we proceed to informational items. Does anyone want to start? Leo, how about you?
Sure. I would just love to share with my committee. As you may or may not know, I held some listening sessions on Zoom a couple weeks ago. And I had received a flood of questions via Facebook, text message, email, and others. And I decided that it might just be easier to have a session where people can come and ask questions to get to hear their concerns. And so on a Tuesday evening, I decided to post it up. And I apologize for not giving the rest of the team here a heads up about that. But they were, we had a good 10 to 15 people at each one. And it's a lot of the things we've already heard, but it was very helpful, I think, to hear the conversation that was occurring between the people who attended the meeting. And so, a lot of the things around, it was a good reminder about some of the frustrations that people are having, trying to make the fear of their kids falling behind, the fear of the social emotional struggles, and then the struggles that we are as parents trying to work with them and everything else. So what I wanted to say was very helpful and informative. And some of the people were appreciative, and I encouraged them to come here to communicate as well, and communicate directly with you all, and that emails may not always be returned, but the volume of email is unbelievable. And I know Dr. Marston only forwards us a sample of the ones he gets. So but that was my comment, and it was a helpful experience for me. So.
Okay, Tim?
I don't have a great deal. I think I reinforce, and even on the theme that Leo talked about of getting input and listening. I joined the Dale Street Site Council meeting a couple weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, as a guest, and I just, I thought it was phenomenal the way that they ran it. It was a combination of obviously teachers, parents, and principal and administration, and that's what I saw as that meeting went on. We started to get a little more of a bond between those parents that are represented and the teachers around how we are going to work through this together. I continue to say for the folks in the room and anyone listening, with site councils, PTO meetings, continue to try to get that bond locally at the schools, I think is one of the many things we can continue to do better in order to advance. So this just came in ad hoc as sharing it, but I thought I was hoping that something like that would happen, and towards the end, you just felt a little more a connection formed. And that's what I've seen when I've gone to some of the other either PTOs. Sometimes it's a principal coffee, but those are the types of things. Smaller groups, a little more intimate, and sometimes more gets done.
I also have to say that I think that one of the things that will come from this situation that we find ourselves in now is that we will be able to reach more people for longer, assuming that some of the restrictions around Zoom and virtual meetings continue or continue to be lifted. I do enjoy, while I actually hate being on Zoom at this point as my main mode of communication, I do love that it allows us to have many more people in the room with us. And I think that is helpful with site council, with PTOs, and hopefully those good parts will continue. Megan, do you have anything?
Similar to what Tim just said, we could talk more about that tomorrow when we talk about ways to better instill communication. But what I'm kind of looking forward to at this point, as Elizabeth or one of the students said, that today was the end, or that term one, basically, it did end, but the report cards came out today, and it's affording, at least in my household, a reflection point, really.
Is that what we're going to call it today?
This is what we're calling it.
Because I think I'm about to go have a reflection point myself.
And I think collectively, I think as a district, we can all kind of stop at this point, and look back and say, okay, we've made it this far, and yay, we've made it this far, and what has worked and what has not worked. And it's going to be different for everyone and every family. But I think it's important that everyone listening or not listening does have that sort of reflection, because you know, and I think Renee Hawley even said it, the equity piece is often just, it varies from person to person. I'm not sure that there ever could be a way to set remote curriculum saying you will spend 6 hours on this when every kid is different and the way in which they learn is different. That gets in the differentiation of what Lauren was saying. So personally for me, I'm, you know, what has worked in our household? What do we need to improve on? And the resources, as the students have said, are there, and the teachers want to help. And now that we have this kind of bulk of data behind us of how this term went, I feel like we should have a better understanding of how to fix things that we think need fixing, and to emphasize things that we feel really worked. So just, I think we should pause and say, phew, okay, it wasn't horrible, you know? So that, I guess I'm reiterating, this is a time of reflection, really, and to thank everybody.
Anna Mae?
Yeah, beautifully said, Megan. And also Tim, I think there are two reminders here, you know, in terms of listening. And I think we heard some of parents' frustrations, and I think we can all relate to a lot of that. I think it's fair. This is manifesting differently in every household. And I think I said in our little interview with Medfield TV, you know, parents are only as happy as your unhappiest kid. And I think we can all feel that, you know, and we can empathize with other families. So I think, you know, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's communication workshop, because maybe we can build on what Tim and Leo did with, you know, allowing, you know, either listening sessions or reinstating office hours. We can talk about that, but I like it at the local level. And then to Megan's point, that point of reflection, you know, where are we? What have we learned? Where are we going? You know, because I do feel that Medfield Public Schools, we've always had the spirit of always improving. You know, I don't think any of us are ever satisfied. And, you know, so I think we just continue to have that spirit to forever improve. And this is a good time to just process and take the next steps. So anyways, thank you.
Just make sure that we don't forget you, Andrew, which we have not. You've been very valuable today. But,
all right, I can't hear you.
I can hear you. Wait, go for it. Oh, that's bad. It's bad. It's bad. Let me stop.
No, I think you're muted. Sorry.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Can you hear me? Sorry. Okay. I actually did have a few things that I wanted to say. And most of them kind of stem from a lot of the parent feedback that started at the beginning of the meeting. But basically, so one of the things that came up was that teachers or parents were kind of worried that their kids weren't getting enough instruction time. And that I wanted to say that that is not the case, at least at the high school level. I can say that I have live stream classes and completely full remote work days, and I do not feel like I'm getting gypped or under instructed in any way. So I can't speak for the younger levels, but I can say that for the high school, and if not that, the senior class. And to kind of go off of that, the instruction time. So Zoom for 6 hours is, I think, at this point during the pandemic, a microcosm of hell for all of us. It can, like, it's just something about trying to stare at your screen and hold focus for that long, especially, like I said, trying to comprehend calculus like this, hunched over your computer, is not ideal. And I was just looking at my screen time on my computer, and between my phone and my computer, I've spent 13 hours on my laptop today, which accounts for 80% of the time that I've been awake. So if we're talking like screen time and instruction time, I think that we've kind of hit the ceiling of how long we can possibly stand in our laptops, at least for my eyes and my back and my like mental health. And then another thing, so you talked about lowering the age, the voting age to 16 in municipal elections. And I think that's definitely an interesting idea. I haven't actually heard that before, but I think all too often in these meetings and stuff, we don't ask students and teachers how the models are working or what life in school is actually like. We're asking the parents. And I know that parents are obviously at home and responsible for their kids and kind of guiding them through remote learning, but I think asking people firsthand and trying to get information from the horse's mouth is the best way that we can evaluate things. And so one thing that I also want to touch on was earlier the girls were talking about the not the attendance system. Yes, the attendance system, sorry. And that was an issue that students were having. So in my own personal experience, sorry, I'll just back up for a second. So in the high school, we have to fill out a Google form every morning on the days that are remote to say that we're present for our classes today. And that's that. But the problem is that there's no reminder for it. And it wasn't mandatory for the first term. So I think kids are forgetting it a lot of the times. And Mr. Sperling will send out an email saying, hey, everyone, like we have like 100 responses out of like I don't know how many, like 400 kids we need to get for today. And I know, so I got my report card back today and it said that I had 4 absences when I knew I didn't have 4 absences. I'd attended all of my classes every single day. And that's something that colleges are gonna see now, that I was absent for 4 days, which is extremely frustrating because I wasn't actually absent. So I emailed, I know this is an issue necessarily for you guys, but I did email Mr. Sperling and the high school principals about that issue. But it might be valuable for you guys to kind of assess remote learning. And I think that's all I have, but if you guys have any questions for me, I'd be willing to answer them.
Hey, Andrew, Aiden got 4 absences as well, and he's never missed a day of school.
Yeah, I know someone who got 10 absences.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of.
I don't feel so bad.
Yeah, definitely.
I do want to tell you, Andrew, I appreciate that you brought this up, that there is a wide range of feedback that we've gotten from parents. And not all of it is that this absolutely isn't working. I think everybody here wants our kids and our students and our teachers back and safe and in school and in the same way that we used to be. But there is a wide range of how people feel about the circumstances that they're in. So I appreciate your comments, as well as anybody who commented tonight, but also the people who maybe don't generally comment on video, but write emails saying that it's not great, but this is going okay for my family, or this is actually an improvement in some ways. We do get a wide range of information from people. So, and that was one of the things I was going to actually bring up. And that doesn't mean that anybody's opinion is invalid, right? As Anna Mae said, everybody has a different experience. I think more than anything, we're learning in a very loud way that everybody experiences a situation entirely differently based on where they are, who they are, and where they are at the moment. So thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm glad to hear from your perspective as well. Please keep being as forthright as you are. Dr. Marston, would you like to?
Thanks, Andrew. Great feedback. Really appreciate it. I just wanted to end on a real positive note. Our Director of Innovation and Instruction, Christine Power, successfully defended her dissertation today and is now officially Dr. Christine Power. So I just want to congratulate her for that.
Christine.
You know, she worked really hard on it. She went.
Wait, she defended her dissertation while doing all of this in the middle of the pandemic.
She did.
And starting a new job.
She did. You know, one of the best things that she did is, you know, she went to Harvard for her master's, but really smartened up and got her doctorate at BC. So that's the real important message out of all this. So I just want to congratulate her. She's you know, a great asset to our community and our district, and she worked real hard for this. So we're happy for her.
I actually, I just didn't think that sometimes you could live in Medfield without somebody in your immediate or kind of extended family having a degree from BC.
Right,
Because
makes sense.
yeah. All right. So in terms of informational items for me, I really did actually want to point out that we are having a workshop tomorrow around ways that we can, as a committee, increase our kind of two-way communication, not simply just having people email to us, but also how do we push out communication to people so that we're able to make sure that people are getting the most accurate information possible, and what are those low-hanging fruits that maybe we need to adapt to the pandemic? How can we change what we're doing right now, and also make sure that those things that we are trying to fine-tune and increase do not put any more stress on the administration. Because honestly, there are many districts at this point that do have part or full-time people to manage their kind of communications. And we do not do that yet. It may have come to the point where we need to, and we'll have to talk about that. I have no idea how we would, but for right now, you know, I just don't feel like we can put any more burden on the central office around that. But whatever we can do in terms of managing our school communication and kind of low-hanging fruit would be very helpful. So I think I see this meeting tomorrow as that being the primary focus, particularly as we move towards Dale Street and as we move on transitioning out of this particular model where we are. You know, one of the things that I've heard or have been looking at is, you know, we know about a vaccine, and that's a wonderful thing, and it's great that it will start being distributed, but it has not been tested on children yet, or they are just beginning those tests. So there is no guarantee that we will be able to go to school without masks next September or any of these things. There are going to be things that will continue to be different. There will never be a time, or there will be a time, but there will never be a time where all of a sudden somebody flips a light switch and says, and we're back to normal. So the more communication that we can push out and join with people, I think as we are doing this kind of marathon run that we never expected, the better. And we're constantly learning and occasionally really messing up. But I would like us to kind of really look at how we do this, even a little more long-term than we ever thought we would. So, okay, thank you on that happy note. Sorry, Christine, that really was a much happier thing. I'm sorry, dudes, we got to start thinking about this. It could be masks. We'll be back. Don't worry about that. But there's going to be, you know, there will still be viral control issues that we have to think about longer than, you know, yay, April. Like it's not going to be the case. So, all right. So on to future agenda items. We do have the superintendent's evaluation on December 17th. It looks like we could prospectively look at, or possibly look at the MCAS resolution, but we'll think about that a little bit more. And then we will, we're still kind of waiting for that slacker, Christine Power, to do a standards-based report card feedback, which we do want to get to. And I know she took a lot of data, but at this point, it's not the highest priority that we have right now. And then social emotional learning and student feedback in general. Our next meeting is on December 17th. And I'm going to seek a motion to adjourn. Leo, second. Anna Mae. So, Leo, roll call. Tim?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Anna Mae.
Aye.
Jessica Riley. Aye. And thank you very much. We will see you on December 17th. Thank you.